Welcome all. Get our day started as usual. Sharpen some tools. Sharp tools are a must in this world. 60 degrees. Then do what you call finish a project from yesterday. It was actually yesterday's class. Sort of one of the few times in my classes that I sort of have to turn the same thing they are. It was only a class scheduled for two, only one took advantage of the class. So it was basically a private class. And it was sort of a repeat customer, so to speak. So I wasn't working with somebody totally unfamiliar with what I was talking about and trying to get them to do, which is a plus, big plus. As far as that would go. This is not a project for a beginner, so to speak, especially a beginner, totally beginner. Anyhow, lots of speed, lots of corners. As you can see, it's square. It will remain square. So there's lots of opportunity for making mistakes and things of that nature. Probably one of my bigger issues for this tonight, that I brought it home, they use the chucks that we have available to us. I shouldn't say they use. This is what I have to use in the classes are the Nova chucks. So it's a totally different tenant size. Oh, I think we might just get lucky. I hope. That would be really sweet. Before I proceed on, because this bottom is fairly well along. Not quite. I don't like this ridge up here. That I'm going to get rid of that, but I need to know whether I have to change that tenant. I'm thinking by my calipers, maybe not. Thinking not. Nope. Good deal. So I don't have to change that. It's going to be a bit of a time saver. The hole was really, had a hole drilled into it with a Forstner bit on the drill press. I want a nice straight hole, nice flat bottom straight hole. So it's going to be my recess that I recess into. There again, those jaws are a little bit bigger, not quite as big as my jaws is going to fit this fine, but my jaws also would not have gone in that recess with that particular chuck. I'm just thinking what else I should do to it. It doesn't necessarily look, that's what I thought. Didn't look like it was undercut in here enough. Kind of the problem with doing some of this in a class situation is I don't necessarily, I try and pay attention to a lot of little details, but like on my piece, it's just kind of like it's going to be there just to show them a little bit of what's going on, what I'm trying to get them to do. So I didn't have that truly undercut a little bit there. So it could have possibly wanted to wobble a little bit on me. If that'll work. This is even partially sanded to go with it because I was showing the lady how to sand something like this. I also don't like this transition up here. And I have material to be able to work with it up there. Be extremely careful where the tool rest is at because the wings can hit the post of the tool rest. So it's it is a very different kind of an animal to work with. Thinking, could I actually just do it? I probably can just do it with a scraper and try it. I'm not sure that's going to be the answer to that though. It will be in there. I don't think I want to come out onto the wings very far. Each project speed is your friend. It's just a traditional scraper. Little downward angle. That's all it really is. So I'm liking that. It's not tearing, it's not chipping anything out, so I can go the rest of the way out on the wings. By the looks of it. Carefully, of course. Wonders of turning at high speeds as well as the chips. Left the ridge in there. Chips go straight up, and since this has straight wings on it, they're actually literally flying right back up in my face, somewhat. And of course, the cleaner that area is cut, like it is right now, that makes sanding kind of trivial or very simple. Um, I do like to leave a little bit of a groove in there. I don't know why, because it makes it a pain in the sort of makes it a pain in the ass to sand. Probably shouldn't leave that groove in there. I just think it gives it a little bit of a detail, which is just kind of my opinion on it. Still have a ridge though. I try not to have ridges. That ridge on a normal bowl or something of that nature, that ridge would sand out very, very quickly and very easily. On something like this, where it's harder to sand to start with, it just makes it all that much harder. It means I would have to sand a lot longer, forcing me into, and of course I just moved the ridge out, that's all I did. think I should probably leave well enough alone because this is already about 3/8 of an inch thick out here on the very edge. It's going to be thinner when I'm done, but it also gets a little bit. I have a very, very light touch. I really don't want to. I really don't like going the whole way out on the wings, especially with a scraper. I'm gonna live with that. It's cleanly cut, so that's the important part. Sanding will be trivial. Learn to leave. Learn to leave certain things well enough alone so that you don't cause a bigger issue than what you already have. Especially when you don't really have much of an issue to start with. A little dust collection. Probably two different sanding discs. I'm going to use out here, I think a 3 inch. See? Some of it I will do without it spinning. It's just a little bit safer. Definitely safer on the fingers. And that's where my little ridge is at anyhow. So I'll get rid of that. Of course, if you're not comfortable trying to sand it while it's spinning, then don't. I will slow the speed down a bit from where we're at turning wise. So I'm still almost at 1300 RPMs, which is really almost too fast to sand. But if I go try and go too slow, or to what I would normally do, then there's too much airspace in between, more likely to drop into the airspace, and then we would have a different issue. Well, let's hope so. This is a piece of ambrosia maple, which is what I had for the class yesterday, which is a good wood for it because it's, you know, don't want to use something that has, no, it doesn't have any smell. It's just a maple. That's all it is. It just has the ambrosia beetle. I don't know what you really want to call that. I would call it the beetle poop. That's what causes the green streaks. There's holes in it. Okay, so that's our wings done. 3 inch, maybe. Try it. It's a lot of fun, I think. It's quick. It's rewarding. Where else can you take a piece of firewood and turn it into something that looks nice, generally looks nice when you're done? The really bad habits that I have gotten into, and a lot of people do the same thing, is if this was just a round piece of wood, my hand was automatically coming over here to sit on it to slow it down and get the lathe to stop a little bit quicker, and my hand was reaching, so have to be a little bit careful. Yeah, I did the first go around actually was in reverse. There's a little bit of grain that's picked up, standing up more so. But before I move on to the next grit, I'm going to go over it going in forward. The reason I sand in reverse is because of dust collection. It's not because the wood cooperates more so with going in that direction. Yep, you too. So that was 180 where I started on that. 'Cause it was clean enough. And it had already been sanded a little bit to start with. And now I've screwed around and put lines back up on there. I should have known that, but oh well. Just means I have to go back on that wing a little bit. Oh, I was trying to figure out why my and why that wasn't sucking the dust because that chute is not open. I was using the joiner the other day, so it was still over here. Imagine that. What a dumb old man mistake. Uh-huh. Now there'll be no dust cloud flying. Okay. Go down here in this base for a little bit. It looked like it was quite there. The beautiful line up there where I touched the wings on the first grit. Well, good evening to you too. We don't want to do that in reverse though. So that's the bold part sanded. I'm not going to mess with anything in there. That's cut super clean because of the scraper. Probably got to go back about one grit maybe. At least that's the thought. Not in reverse. Speed's going to come back up a bit. Should have known you put a 180 scratch in there. It's a little hard to get rid of it with something less. Now we got it. touch with the other two, and we'll be done, ready to rip this around and finish hollowing it out. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, yo. Alright, that'll be good enough. This will go back to the, hopefully, should finish this up. Well, we'll finish turning it at least tonight, sanding it. So it will go back to the woodcraft store and put it on display. I did turn just a plain bowl of this same stuff because that was the wood of the month at the store. And at least by the what the pile looked like when I was over there, it actually did a good job. Ambrosia maple is the wood, which is a hard maple. No, this one actually was marked that it was actually a soft maple. Difference between hard and soft is, anybody's guess. Some of the soft maples, I guess, can be very sort of soft. You're quite welcome. So let the fun begin. We're at, Red likes to know measurements. So on the very outside edge of these wings, um, maybe that camera over a little bit. Not sure which is show better. Go down. I don't think it's not gonna show. If I move in a little bit, we'll leave it at that for the moment. You can let me know. Trouble getting this camera over where I want it. Not that direction, no. Keep it centered in the view. Because we're going to work out here on these wings, and you'll be able, hopefully, keyword hopefully, you'll be able to see pretty much what I see. No, yes, I think I am. The last thing I was doing on here was wet wood, and I'm going to run my fingers across the tool rest. Wet wood has a tendency to leave some residue behind, sappy residue. I want this to glide nice and smooth and freely so that we can get these wings done. Not quite that close though. Because for some reason there's one little place right there that evidently when I was showing her I didn't quite get that far, which is kind of a bad thing because it's already, when I measure in the thickness back here, it's already about 1/4 of an inch. So we'll get warmed up. We'll get rid of some of this material in here first so that we get our brain on the right track, I guess you'd say. That's what I would call it. When I'm out in the wings, it's going to be fast. Faster than what most people are comfortable with. I started at this just over 2,000. I'm going to get rid of some of this out here. push these back a little bit. Want to leave plenty of meat back there. So now we got this is where this lady sort of got scared whenever I told her where she needed to stand. Because I'm literally standing almost directly, not totally directly in front of it, but I need to be able to look. For me, I'm tall. I'm able to look down to see what I'm doing, but I have to be directly in line with it. So that's our cut, and it's going to be loud. I figured that. Yeah. So I was a little bit. When you do these, you almost have to. There's a teeny little bit left of there. I'm not going to worry with that. So now we're less than a quarter of an inch. These are flexible. The main concern is that I didn't go in the wrong direction. I certainly left enough out there on the tips of them, but we're gonna leave it at that. When you're doing these, you almost, for the most part, you really almost get one shot at getting them right. If you don't get it right on the first try, you're generally in a bit of a problem. A nice little light cut, in control. Lots of stopping and looking till you get where you want it to be. Okay, I went the opposite direction. I don't know if you'll be able to actually pick up that. So it's thinner here, it's thicker in the middle, which, as I told her, is really not much of a problem. I kind of like them to be even, but we're in the right direction. We're thicker there, so we can always take more off. It's just a rather bit of a challenge to put something back of that nature. So I can come back out. I got a definite line out here, which is about where I want to pick up, and take just a little bit more off. And I can see that line as it's spinning. That should have gotten it, I hope. I don't like to keep playing too much. Okay, it might be a shade thicker down in this very center part, but I think at that rate I'm going to leave it alone. It's just one of them situations of better off to leave things alone on that. The only person that would actually probably would be able to pick that up would be somebody that has a really good eye. And once I sand it, it'll be less yet, and just round that edge over a little bit. You won't know the difference. You won't be able to pick that out, put it that way. Yeah, tool resting. Yeah, yeah. Well, if you notice, if you have any inkling of doing anything like this, you see how very careful I'm being. What you always forget on something like this is the fact that there's part of the banjo is sticking up here. Not all. This is Laguna, so it's wide. So it's maybe 3/8 of an inch away from that down there. I might actually have to go to a longer tool rest actually to get in the middle. Probably where I should just go right off the bat. Because you got to stay home on these, and such, so to speak, and that you cannot stress that to her all day long. Is your hand, any part of your body has to remain on your side of the tool rest at all times. The biggest thing for me and a lot of people would be all of my on off switches over here on my left side. Now, the ones we use in the classroom are the little Jet 1221, so the power switch is on the right side. So I said, and she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Because automatically for me, if I need to shut it off, I just reach across. Where when you're doing this, when you reach across, one of these actually cute little winks could actually catch you in the hand. And it would not be a very nice thing to happen. So we're off the wings. We can slow down a bit. I don't slow down too terribly much, but that way it sounds a little less like a helicopter. Okay, well, I don't know. I don't know if that really, it's not really zoomed in quite far enough. Let me change something. So you can sort of, what I'm going to change, I'm going to bring this view in closer. So it'll take me a couple seconds to get it to do that. Medium. And then you'll sort of be able to see what I see. Not too worried about the outside wings part going around. You'll be able to see some of that, but that'll get us a little closer so that you'll be able to see a little bit more of what I see. And as it's spinning around, you can sort of, maybe I'm lying to myself, I think, yes. Because right now, when I stick my head in front of the camera, I'm sure, to look straight down, this little line, this last little ridge out here is about where the outside of her bowl is, which is always is the next bit of a I don't know if you want to call it a problem. I would call it more like a concern, because you don't want to go through all that work of making those lovely wings to have that part wrong and just turn around and cut right through the wings and have the wings disappear. Not a whole lot of fun. Not really overly exciting as far as something flying around and banging off the ceiling or anything like that. Because they're generally speaking, they're so light, they just kind of disappear. I'm brave enough to lean forward and look down across it while it's running. I'm really looking for this outside edge. I never said I was making a honey dipper jar. I finish up from yesterday. Not to mention we haven't sold any honey. I haven't sold any more honey dipper jars. Oh, I got you. I mean, I never claimed to be the master streamer and be able to get it to do what I want it to do every single time. That's for sure. All else fails. I can use the small ones. Use a caliper to check it. Anyway, we're gonna know. I think we're plenty. Oh yeah, half inch. This, yes, this is actually the square bowl. As I said earlier, when I do this class at Woodcraft, this is one of the few times I actually do something pretty much right along with in yesterday's case was one student for this. In a normal bowl class, I don't do a bowl along with them. I'm generally too busy trying to keep track of what they're doing so that they don't get carried away and cause more work. So it was a half. So we'll take about an eighth out of there. As Rudy Lopez told me once, measuring is free, so do it a lot. So that's about 3/8. Ooh, wait a minute. Be careful though. Careful what you wish for. Okay. I do have a little bit of a groove that actually went sort of a little bit undercut, so I can still take a little bit more out. Mm, that's too much. I think that's where we're gonna stop. Now I'll come back and get rid of that definite ridge there. One with the lady yesterday, I told her that you could put a bead right there, and we'd put a bead, but we ended up putting a bead in the wrong place and ended up having to go back and cut it off anyhow. But I'm like, it looks kind of neat, but it's also a pain in the ass because it makes it that much harder to sand. So now we're going to be quarter inch, down in that groove. It's a quarter above it, maybe a little bit fatter, not much. Okay. This is my method. I want this top to be the top part of this to be complete. I'm not one to take the center out. I want to leave that center there as long as I possibly can. I almost did what I tried to stress to those people not to do. As I try and get them to leave the steps just like what I'm doing here in the class, and they always forget. They're so concerned about making the steps, but as we go down, the last couple steps need to curve to match the ball. And they want the one young lady was quite a ways down, and I rushed down it, and I'm like, I actually had her stop and wait for me to get to over to her because I'm like, this wood turning is not supposed to be a an earplug, ear protection kind of a thing. I said, you're making an awful lot of noise. I said, how about you give me 2 or 3 minutes till I get this other person caught up. I said, I want to see what you've done. And she just took one of those steps and ran it straight down onto the curved part of the ball. And she was down to about a quarter of an inch. The other thing with these, it's very hard to get it to actually be a nice flowing curve. It sounds like I'm getting thin too. Stop and look. No, we're not. We're good. Yeah, we're good. Something changes sound, you better stop and check. I think we can just stop and get rid of all the middle. Because I still have about a half an inch of material in there. Pushing a little too hard. We got some spirals in the middle. Don't have quite the curve that I want in there. So that's all been done with a 60-degree gouge. I do have one that's ground at 65 degrees. 5 degrees doesn't sound like much, and it really truly, when you look at it on the grinder as far as changing it, it is not much, but it's also going to let me make this curve in there a little bit easier than the 60. Across the middle, it doesn't make a difference. Some ways maybe it does because the handle doesn't have to be as far over to me because of the shorter, blunter angle. And that's probably going to be, we got some lovely ripples up there from playing around. But my curve is relatively nice. Yeah, we're not much over a quarter of an inch to bottom. So now it becomes a question of, do we want to be really kind of, whatever you want to call it, brave or stupid enough to try and sweeten that curve up? That I'm going to pick up a scraper and just touch that a little bit. That's a nice radius for that scraper. and raise the tool rest just a shade, just because I know it is maple, so this stuff actually sands pretty easy, but would maybe make it easier if I could see it too. See where it's at to make sure I get rid of it. And that line wasn't quite enough. Ever so gentle. Because it will vibrate very quickly when it's that thin, which it did up there on the rim, up closer to the rim. But hopefully, get rid of it. Scraper doesn't always do as nice of a job as what the cutting tool does. It lifts a little bit of grain from here and there, but I got rid of that lump, and that's really what I was after. So from there, we're back to everybody's favorite pastime. My favorite pastime, anyhow. Put it that way. So once I get everybody to that point in the class, then I get to go over and maybe sit down for 2 minutes and let them sand. So just like we did on the outside, we'll do the same thing on this inside. I will do the wings first. Most likely we'll do a little bit by hand, just because it's a little bit easier, a little bit safer. If there's going to be marks, and there is some, that's where they're going to be. Is right on these wing tips. So if I eliminate them before I started to spin, eliminate this big hairy pencil line up here. That's while I'm at it. While I'm thinking of it, I might as well sand all of this right now. One thing you have to keep in mind when you're doing some of this, especially with some of this stuff, is the more I do to it, the sharper these edges become. They're already sharp now. I just now sand it over them. They are now a razor blade. Don't do that. Don't slide off the side of it. Get rid of the saw marks. I've seen some people do some of these and they fart around sanding them saw marks while the piece is still square. It's like, why not wait till it's only a quarter of an inch thick? It'd be a whole lot easier. So as long as I use the bottom third of the pad, or even quarter of it, we're safe. The 3-inch pad, that part there is not 3 inches long anyhow. And it's actually sort of a hard pad, not a soft pad. It will work just fine and dandy. Should be brushed off to make sure there's no grit behind. I asked the lady yesterday when we got to the sanding part. I said, well, I said, you want the world's greatest, simplest hand massage. You can do this by hand. What did I do? I went from one. No, no, never mind. She didn't think that was a good idea. I'm like, well, just so you know, it actually can be done. It is not something I would suggest to do, but it certainly can be done. I would put some sort of foam pad or something behind it. So there's our wings done. Now we'll switch to a 2-inch pad or 2 3/8 inch pad. Or maybe this soft. This one, this time we will use a soft pad on the inside. Probably because I'm too lazy to change it. Or will I? Trying to see whether. I think we'll try it with the soft pad. This is actually on a 2-inch pad. Sandpaper's 2 3/8. Now we're going to slow it down. Down about 600, something like that. This is also where we got to be extremely careful because we have things coming around the corner that can flat out smash your fingers. And of course, we know the trouble spot's going to be up here in this curve. We'll stand out a little bit longer. Get right out on that edge. You can get quite all of it. There's always going to be that little pie-shaped area. Come on now. This pad here has seen its better days, and then be pushing hard on it. Oh, come on. Let's switch to a different pad. I won't stick to this one either. Nope. That's what you call ruin a piece of sandpaper. When you get too aggressive on something like that, it just kind of rips the Velcro off. It's also going to put some very big scratches in there. See if I can go back to my soft pad. Yeah. This is a very old soft pad. Kind of deteriorating. I gotta get rid of those giant sized scratches that I put in there. Success. Now we can cruise through the rest. See if this is another piece that kind of spun on the Velcro that may or may not stay on. That was 150. Small jump to 180. I tell all my students this is a blood-free zone, and it was, of course. They didn't have anybody do anything really totally stupid, except me. Down in my classes, when I clean everything up, of course they help with some of that, but I have to go empty the big garbage can full of chips, which gets taken out back and over into the woods, so to speak. I did that, and I had all kind of dust and dirt, which is what they throw on me while I'm helping them, on my shoulders, and I went to knock the dust and dirt off of my shoulder, not thinking that these smocks have a little pocket on the sort of the upper part of the arm for like a pencil, a rule, a little. In my case, it was a little ruler, a little metal ruler. I brushed that off. That laid my finger open so quick it wasn't even funny. So I got back over and got back in the building. I got blood dripping off the end of my finger. And you're like, well, that was not smart, especially for me because I do not get along real well with the sight of my own blood. So that was very quickly licked up in a paper towel and a little bit of painter's tape over top of it to hold the paper towel on and keep on moving and don't dwell on the subject that there's blood there. She made out all right. Kind of the pain of the ambrosias. There's little holes in there. Don't necessarily want them filled up with sawdust. Abuse my paintbrush and push them out because generally speaking, those holes go the whole way through. Okay, now we have razor blades. If I pushed hard on that, that would slice my fingers. So, what do we do? Either 600 or 800, one of the two. Probably go with the 8, maybe. I'll just soften them up a little bit. I just want to soften them. I don't want them to be a razor blade. So it's just a little softened. In this case, it's going with the grain. So it sands very easily. It's just a little sharp edge. Same way with this razor blade tip corners. I just kind of soften them up a bit. Not taking away from the piece at all. It's just making it a little bit safer to handle. Of course, make sure your fingers don't slide off the sandpaper while you're doing this. Another one of them scenarios, blood running and it'd be my own blood, which would not be a good situation. Okay, that's where we're at on that. I think that's where we're gonna be on that. And there's no time like the present. Might as well give it a quick finish. Take all the way to 2 minutes. Take care of. No center point doesn't really matter. That's the 2-inch draws. I do have one for that. Just my piece of foam doesn't want to stick anymore. We need to get a new piece of carpet tape on that. So we just basically jam it back between centers. We're not going to spin it, it's just a matter of being able to hold it. The other thing in this case, you can go over here, make more sense. It might be too clean. See what it looks like when we put the ball up there. This time around, I normally, oh come on, piece of foam, you're supposed to stay on there. Sticky's not very sticky anymore. I shouldn't make such a big concave in there. It would help them stick better. That would be something. I put a piece of wax paper in there. Super glue and wax paper do not get along. Or I shouldn't say don't get along. It just became a barrier because we know for a fact there's a hole, there's holes. As I go over them holes, that super glue is probably going to go right straight through to the inside. And if you want to have a really bad day, is have that go through there, get on that nice little yellow pad and set up, which it will because I'll spray activator on this outside. So that automatically will make that setup on that yellow pad, and it will suck that yellow piece of that yellow pad right into that hole. And then you have a piece, a nice piece with a bright yellow pad on it. I gotta back up a little bit on the camera, which is not exactly a good look. There we go. A little better. The Parfix 3408. It's a slow setting super glue. If you've ever been on this channel, you'll know this is what I use all the time. I am a distributor, but that's really not why I use it. I use it because I like it. It's quick and easy, and I get very good results time after time with it. It's not like some sort of a wipe-on finish or even a spray lacquer or something like that. It's very consistent, very simple to use. Gives me the end result I'm looking for. I don't want something that looks like a piece of plastic. I want something that looks like a piece of wood. This fills the grain the whole way. It still is sort of a piece of plastic in some ways when you're done. But it also, when you touch something that's been finished in this fashion, you are touching the wood, you're not touching finish. Because this stuff will go into the pores, into the grain, fill up the pores as best as it can. And what you're left with is touching the wood that has sort of been plastically stabilized in some ways. Super glue is nothing more than a plastic, liquid plastic. So we're going to try and get it saturated. Can do the square edges while I'm here. The easier way of doing them. I'm gonna rip my glove because I can feel it's already sticking fast to my glove. Just because it's that slow and that nature to it doesn't mean that it isn't still a super glue. It will glue your fingers together. It will glue other things together very quickly and very efficiently. As in my glove. How are you? So we're just wiping off the excess. First go around is the same bit of paper towel. This actually is smearing it around some more to go with it. Dry bit of paper towel. I want this surface to be dry, if that makes any, even though it doesn't necessarily always make sense. I don't want any of this material laying on the surface. Oh, wonderful. They said we were going to get storms tonight. Hopefully then we don't get one of them storms and knock the power out. That's a really bad day. The power goes off in my shop because it is in the basement. Only one little tiny window. Well, they said, I mean, earlier, we went in town earlier. It looked like it should rain at any minute, but it didn't rain yet. Of course, now you're saying it will. Can of activator is about all. As you can see, I sprayed the activator at a distance. I'm not up close and personal with it. I just want the mist to land down on it. So we're golden there. Don't look like any of the holes were uncooperative. So we'll flip it around and do the inside. Leave this thing sitting out, maybe because I have the tape out here somewhere. Put some more tape on that one. I didn't get any on the tenon anyhow, so we're good there. The other thing, if I need to, if there's a question as to whether I got any on the tenon area, if this was something that I would have started from scratch, I would have made the foot the same size as the jaws of my chuck, which would have been the bigger jaws, but then I would have used that as my foot. So if I needed to grab a hold of that just like I did there, there's no worries to it. I would have just taken the 2 seconds or 2 minutes out or a minute out, grabbed the microcrystalline wax or some sort of a wax, put a little light coat of wax on the jaws, and then it would have been golden. Just to create a barrier, because super glue would easily stick to those jaws. Inside will take less material than the outside, as far as the super glue goes. Outside is sealed. Whichever side is second, I should say, not necessarily inside outside. I normally do it in this fashion. For me, I do inside or the outside first, because that way I can flip it around just like I did. Or if I'd have done the inside, then now would be in the questionable area of, is the wax paper going to be enough of a barrier? Because when you put a little bit of pressure on, you could actually squeeze some glue out. Because even though it looks like it's set up on the surface, which it is, it's not set up underneath that surface. It will take a period of time before it sets up and cures. That's why you will never, I shouldn't say never, never is a long time, but you will not see me fill a crack or something like that with super glue, especially these super glues, and turn around and try and turn it in less than an hour away, in less than an hour's time. It will just cause you all kind of aggravation. You have super glue all over the tool rest, everything, anything. Ruin a face shield. I've ruined more than a few face shields because you get the super glue on it and there's literally no way to get the super glue back off of the face shield. Because take it from experience that acetone is not your friend on one of these plastic face shields. Made that mistake once. That's a $15 or $20 mistake. You can buy replacement shields for them. Like I say, they're not free. It's almost anymore. It's almost as cheap to buy a whole new face shield as it is to replace the lens. But I try not to do that. So that's it. Done. Set it off to the side, or along with a handful of other ones that I did earlier tonight. So there's the inside. It does have some nice ambrosia streaks going through it. The shine that appears to be there now will be a little bit more of a shine than that come tomorrow or the next day when I buff it. It's dry enough to touch with my bare fingers at this point. You just don't want to squeeze something because you always have moisture in your fingers, unless you have really, really dry skin. So that's our square bowl. Time 7:11. So we got about 50 minutes or so. I hate summertime. Can't ever get these. I can't get these gloves off half the time as it is. So as soon as I put a glove on my hand, it makes my fingers sweat. I do need this back. I'm gonna grab a piece of carpet tape on this. If you were here, I'm gonna say maybe like 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, somewhere in that area, I did a couple natural edge persimmon bowls, most of which I just rough turned. Actually, I still have like two more to do yet to get rid of all the rest of them. But at any rate, one of them, two of them actually, one's still over in the other room. I decided I would go back and try some more of the microwave technique to dry them. So this was sopping wet 2 to 3 weeks ago. It is about 3/4, probably a little less than 3/4 of an inch thick. It doesn't show any movement on that side. When I flip it over on that side, on this tenon here, it is, see if I can measure it well enough to give you an idea. 2.5 in the short side, 2 3/4 on the long side. So it has moved quite a bit. Even microwaving it moved, which is pretty typical. Hopefully it didn't move a ton that I can't get something out of it. That's kind of the downfall of doing them. Ideally, what I should have done, I mean, these were actually too wet to do it. Um, I've done some of these when they're not super, super wet, and it's dry enough to actually sand it while it's still fairly damp, so to speak. It's not going to be far enough back to get my tool resting there. So now it becomes an issue because I don't have a center point in there. So I'm just going to kind of spin it around and eyeball it. It's very hard to eyeball because it's so out of whack. I don't think that's quite that center. Ideally, I should have had a center point in there or something thereabouts. So I can spin it. We know it's not going to be nowhere near true. But according to my oval in the middle, there's my watch, or my phone's telling my phone's making its funny sound, so that means them storms are getting close. Short tool rest, shorter tool rest, that sounds enough. Okay, I used the big jaws. Thinking out loud, I used the big jaws, so I'm probably just going to have to take that tenon down. This is one of them times that I wish I had this. There's some really big shark jaws. Because I could grab this, maybe refine this tenon a little bit, grab it and put some little grooves to expand out on the inside. It would give me a little easier access, but I don't have such a thing. So we deal with what we got. Ideally, that would be in my mind, that would be my foot on something like this, something of this size. But I don't think I'm going to be able to. Let's see when we get it running. I probably won't be able to go super, super fast either. It's going to pick up some vibration pretty quick. I'm going to give myself a flat area. I think it'll help me see and screw that up a bit. And I should be able to see the ghost image on this tenant. I'll be gentle though. Everything's a little out of round. Probably the further out I go, the more out of round it's going to be. We're still not quite round there yet. I know I used the big ones here. So we're just going to have to go down to the smaller size jaws. Go ahead and mark that, and I'll just take it right down to them. Or thereabouts. I don't need to be super fussy with that. They're probably going to go away. Maybe. Spindle gouge is my choice for the tenant. Well, when I drop the handle like that, it becomes a shear scraping tool. Because I'm not really going to be able to get in there with a bowl gouge, or even this, well, spindle gouge would never get in there. It's not going to be a pristine, clean cut by any means. But now I can work the rest of it out, and we can clean up that little bit in the bottom. And we'll use one of the bowl gouges that we didn't use on the other one. So it looks like we're losing, at least in that area, about 1/8 of an inch. We'll see when we get out here a little further as to whether we're going to lose more. We shouldn't. At least that's my thought. I'll be very gentle in the touch because I don't have the blazing speed that I would normally like to have out in that area. So the airspace is lessened. Didn't quite get round there. No, didn't get quite around there. It's always going to be on these on the lower side of this because that's where it shrunk to. Tiny little crack there, but that's fine. So a little bit more. We'll have the outside complete. Remember I said I used the 60° or 65° on the inside. You can also use this on the outside to be able to get in here closer to the tenant. Take another little cut. The shape is alright, so I'm just trying to maintain the same depth of cut the whole way up to the top. And I get a little noise out, a little bit of noise out of it when we get up there. This is persimmon, by the way. It has an odd. Kind of what I figured this was going to do. It's got such a big heavy coarse bark on it. I don't think much of it's going to stay. Of course, now I broke a piece off. The rest will want to stay. But so now we've gotten it cleaned up the whole way up. I can go in here with my scraper and clean up the last little bit in the bottom. A little bit of chatter marks up there. Not really surprising because it's such a weird angle. It's really hard to try not to have that, or try to have that super light touch. I'll go back in here with my curved shear scraper. Most people want to call it a shear scraper. Kind of looks fine. This way I can get right in up against my tenon. I don't need a shoulder in there. Doesn't necessarily help you. So that's the name of that tune. It's usually, if we're having a good day, it's usually pretty quick and easy. The tenant could use a little, use just a tiny little bit. It doesn't really have to be much of a dovetail, but I always like a little bit. It's only a little over 1/8 of an inch wide, or deep, I guess you'd want to call it. Not wide, deep. So I want to make sure it fits well. So we're back to the same old game of sanding, which won't take much, or it won't take a lot. I like my right angle Makita drill, which I bought at a sale at a very reasonable price. The only thing I don't like about them is the handles or the triggers down here, which makes sense most of the time right up until you turn it over and you're fumbling around up here and hit the handle while something is in your hand, as in a sanding disc or something like that. Doesn't feel very nice. So I started with 150 because I didn't have any, there wasn't no, I had no torn grain or anything like that. So I'm not even going to use the 180. I'll go from 150 to 220, or in this case, miss 40. Just get in there as close as I can to that tenant, figuring that I'm going to leave a little bit of room to, because that foot's going to want to be a little bit bigger than that 2-inch tenant is what's in there. It would be nice if I might look at that before. I probably should look at that now instead of sanding it and going back to square one. See how much material. We're still probably 5/8 of an inch thick, so I didn't lose much. Mm, this is when you probably should just leave things well enough alone and try and be extra creative. So 9. So in all reality, I want about 3, somewhere about a 3-inch foot. Yeah, I'll leave it alone. My little brain was telling me if I put a little bit of a little cove type thing in that area, it would give me just a little bit of a detail, make it sit up off the table and still be able to remove all that. Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth the effort. Standing speed on this is just like the square balls. I'm more up around 800 RPMs. Just makes it a little less bouncy up over those upper parts of those wings, or the upper part of the curve. Also teaches you to have a gentle touch, a gentler touch, I guess you would say. Because if it's bouncing all over the place, you know it's being a little too aggressive. So that is our outside complete. I left a nice ring mark in there now, anyhow. But that wouldn't really matter. All I would be doing outside of that would be putting finish on it. And some would say you could do that right now if you wanted to, but I learned by trial and error that about the time I do that is when I do something to create another issue, and then I would have wasted the time and materials to actually put the finish on the outside. This has been dried in the microwave, by the way. I didn't say that. I might not have said that. This one had a whole bunch, probably close to 20 times through the microwave at about 45 seconds a pop, because I started microwaving this one pretty much right away, as in turned them Sunday night, and I think I started on this one on Monday. It sat in a paper bag overnight, so it loses a lot of moisture very quickly. At least that's my experience. Not no technician at it, but they lose a lot of moisture very quickly. So the next day I started to microwave it, and the first couple go arounds, I mean, it's rather, you almost need gloves even at 45 seconds, because this thing is like steaming away, and of course steam is a little on the warm side. This stuff has a weird bark on it too. Almost should really look it up. It almost reminds you like it should be some sort of pine as far as the bark goes. So we should be better in balance, which we are. So I can get my speed up nice and fast so I can glide across these wing areas. Just like the ball it's just like the square one. I'm going to work on these wings first. I'm not going to go very far. I have to go further than what you would want. I'm going to turn the dust collector back on until I get through the bark. That on. Thank you. Bark is very dusty. I'm out. I'm going to see if I got close. We didn't get quite enough of it. Can be rather noisy too, especially if you're having one of those days like we are right at the moment that we're pushing a little bit harder than what I want to, should be. Also makes it different because this bark is so thick. You think you're through the bark and into the wood, and you're not. So we're still not quite touching on these outside points, which is the area that would have moved the most. So for me, and this works, my right hip is pretty much against the side of my lathe. Right eye, once I establish the cut, my right eye stays over here, my left eye goes over on the other side so that I can sort of visually see the thickness as we go down, at least part way down. I left a ridge up here. I'm going to go back up and pick up that ridge because I'm getting a little thicker as we went down. Work at nice little areas, line in there. That's one of the other things that makes me in the mind that must be in the pine family. Trying to figure out why my tool didn't want to slide. There's some just that little bit of time with working with that. It's left some almost like it's leaving some sap or something behind. Okay. Pick up where we left off. Under that corner. And if we were being really fussy, we could actually measure it. My fingers are pretty good measuring sticks. Do have to keep in mind on that bottom that we were going to remove that tenon and it's not part of my foot, so it's just a matter of this last little bit to make into the final curve. That's kind of the wonders of doing it on in the microwave. I seem to always get a bunch of little, there's a bunch of little hairline cracks on that part, some over there too. The super glue will fill them in, just the fact that they're there. Just like our square bowl, in the same token, you probably cannot see my left hand at all in the picture because it's that far back on. My left hand is actually back. Turn the lathe off before you do something dumb. There's where my left hand is while I'm turning this. So I make sure that I am stay far enough away from those wings because your concentration is in here, not out here. So it will have the potential to enlighten you, I guess you'd want to call it, get your attention. And of course, it's not going to be in a very nice, friendly way. So definitely, I have some ripples, which is not uncommon. I think I'm actually going to be able to sand this with a 3-inch pad. I'll use a soft pad instead of the hard pad. At least that's the plan. If I can, it'll make it go a little bit faster, a little bit easier. I'm going to try it with 150. I'm not sure that's going to be enough. Just like our square one, nothing says we can't do these upper wings while it's not spinning a little bit. But that's where all of our, right there's where all of our tool marks are at anyhow. So, no point in not doing it that way. That little bit of time will save us time, so to speak. Speed back down, probably about 800 or so, 8 or 900, because it is airspace out here. I'm gonna get more bark off yet. Make sure we got all first grit. There's a piece of bark right down my shirt. There's something funny going on right there. Whether that's just something in the wood, I'll find out. It must be just a light spot of some sort. It's not on both sides, so must be something, just something a little weird on that piece. This time we won't skip the 180 though. We'll go right through. Anybody have any questions, comments? Subscribe if you would please, if you didn't already. We're here pretty much every Sunday night around 6 p.m. Eastern time. Occasionally during the week, late afternoon, early evening. Occasionally. Definitely won't definitely won't be any this week. I got some actual woodworking stuff to do, so we will be working on that all week. We won't be playing around over here. That left most of the bark on. I guess that's a plus. Some people like it, some people don't. Left some, took some off of there earlier. A little bit missing there. Definitely a little bit thin right there. So that's going to fall off. It won't be oil, but it'll be my super glue because that's where we'll go from here. See whether I have it truly dry or not. We'll find out in about a minute. According to how I do it, it is dry. It was through the microwave enough times that once it stops losing weight on a gram scale, which is a very fine measurement, I usually will run it once or twice more In this case, it has been done and over here for the last. Well, I didn't prevent them all. That's the ironic part. Although now you can't. I can't. Well, there is some. There is a little bit of crack. Oh, the pith has to go away. The pith always has to go away. There's very. There's only. There's a very few pieces that I will do that the pith will stay. I do some little. I have one here that I did as a demonstration one night. Not a very pretty thing. There would be the only. Oh, yeah. Only a half inch of dust on it. That would be one of the only few kind of a thing that I would do where you can see the pith is right there. It is also right there. There is some, this one has some little radial cracks going out from it. This was reasonably dry in the log. It wasn't super dry. But as far as other, well, it's not a waste. You can't think of it that way. I mean, if it's a small piece, you're going to cut down through it. That's what I do with them. I will try and cut straight down through it with the band or the chainsaw. Generally speaking, unless you're doing something different than I am, if you're talking about the pith, you're getting logs for free to start with. So I don't worry about it. I don't do much in the way of gluing up stuff for on the lathe. Um, I don't wait for them to dry. Bulb length bowls and things like that. I think this stuff is going to be very porous. I'm going to use the 3460, which is the next level in the super glue line here. This is actually thicker. Oh, well, you don't want the pith. Carving wood's a whole different animal. I play around doing some of that too. Mainly basswood. Well, always basswood. I've done a little bit with cedar. Yeah, sure. I mean, if you can get a big enough log, and if you get a big enough log, what I do with them would be two choices. If it's big enough, as in, say we're going to go to a 12. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know where you're from, but here in central Pennsylvania, bass trees do grow in this area. Yeah. The basswood that grows around here, as I've gotten some already from somebody, one of my wood guys brought some in to the turning club, and of course nobody wanted that at the turning club. Oh, basswood, you can't turn that. I'm like, well, why not? You absolutely can turn it, and that's generally what I do with the stuff that I got from him. Okay, you probably have some good basswood up there, maybe. I don't know. I'm not the one to be asking too many questions on the wood carving. The wood carving guy that's at our woodcraft store has helped me get started on it and give me some quick lessons and some pointers and this and that. And the wood carving community is really kind of funny when it comes to what wood they want, what basswood they want. They generally want it out of the northern Wisconsin, Minnesota. their their philosophy is his philosophy. Okay. I've gotten some off of Amazon too. I've gotten some of the basswood that's actually beaver craft. Okay. Yeah, I mean there's different names for it. I do know that. But what I do was, and I was given some, actually the owner of the woodcraft store. It was given to him at some point, and he sent out an email and said, like, anybody want any of this crap? He said, I got these giant sized chunks of this stuff, and they were big chunks. They were probably 12-inch square blocks, maybe 18, 20 inches long, something like that. And he brought them in. Of course, nobody wanted them. There's nothing to be afraid of. Wood carving is more dangerous to your fingers than this is, at least for me, anyhow. It's all about taking your time, understanding the tools. You know, if you're working with carving tools, you sort of have a head start because you understand, or at least you should have a head start. Keyword should, um, because you already understand that the bevel. Well, it's some of it's understanding the characteristics of your tools, which if you're into wood carving, and I say most wood carvers should have an understanding. At least I would have thought they would have, but I had two ladies that were wood carvers take class with me several months ago, and I'm like, well, this will be a piece of cake because they understand that we're going to cut in a certain direction. We're going to maintain our bevel contact because you're doing the same thing in wood carving. You're cutting in wood carving, you generally can cut in both directions, but as you very well know, it might not cut so well in certain directions on a piece of wood when you're using, at least when you're using a knife, anyhow. But it's not a whole lot different in the wood turning. You're going to follow some simple, basic do's and don'ts, and you can turn pretty much any wood versus carving with either chisels or gouges. You know, you're going to want a softer wood. A softer wood in wood turning drives a lot of people nuts because they haven't taken the time to learn how to use their tools properly and cut properly with them. And that's really, to me, that's really the big difference. But just follow the simple rules. Stick around on Sunday nights and watch me. I try and explain it to you. If there's something you don't understand that I'm doing, just shout. I'll bring the camera in as close as I possibly can and show you what. That's all it is. To keep the speed down. You know, I turn fast, but I've been at this for somewhere between 18 and 20 years. So I understand what the speed's going to do for me. Life is short. How's that? Life could be short. Right. Well, and that's kind of why I do it live. For one, number two, I'm too lazy to sit there and edit videos. It's kind of not my really thing to do. So there we go. We're just about at 8 o'clock. Let's go over here, zoom out a bit, see if I can get them both on there on the vertical end of it. Can we get them both on there? No, we can't. Move that way, wrong way. I show them to you one at a time. So there's our square ball. Come on, widen out. This is the problem of the vertical. You don't have the wider field of view. There we go. So there's a square ball. Square wings. It is still a ball. This will go away. And we'll take that off some other day. Tomorrow. The next day. That'll just become just flat. It'll have a flat base to it. It's ambrosia maple. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, neither one of them will be left like they are. This is first off on the natural edge one. Um, I mean, in some ways I could. These are pretty much decorative. This is a nice shallow one. So yeah, this is still going to come off. There's enough room to remove all that. Um, if it, if I was able to have gotten the foot out to about there, somewhere about in that area, somewhere around a 3 inch range, then I would have left the foot. I would have finished the foot off as the foot, or the tenon off as a foot. I don't know about the whittling your way out of it, but I wish you good luck on it. It does have some little cracks. Yeah, I don't know about microwaving them after the fact, but microwaving them to dry them does work. Although there's probably a dozen or more tiny little micro cracks up in there on that one. I am working on another one. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit fatter or whatever than what this one is. Um, that one was in a paper bag while I was drying this, and this actually took me a couple days till I got it totally dry. Yep, there you go. So that's going to be it for me tonight. I'm going to go sit down and relax a little bit, get busy and do some woodworking stuff tomorrow. Should have cleaned my face shield off earlier. Maybe I could have seen what I was doing. So, at any rate, we will be back. Yep, you're quite welcome. We will be back next Sunday night. Yeah, I don't think there's anything going on Sunday. least not that I know of. I try not to have anything going on Sundays. So until then, everybody have a wonderful week and stay safe in your shops and have fun at it. See you next time.